The Emerald Tablets of Tuti. This is the Emerald Tablets of Tuti. This is the book, The Master Secrets, where we actually break down and teach the language itself. So as you see, the Master Teacher dedicated the cover to mirror the Emerald Tablets of Tuti. This predates everything. This is going 75,000+ years. This is a Sabian script. Now, this is our language here, so you can see our symbols, and then you can compare and contrast. This is Sabian script, Ethiopian script, and Sub-Saharan script. And this is the Emerald Tablets, which is the ultimate, the oldest. And that's where our language comes from. It's a combination of all. And the Master Teacher spent the time updating it to modernize it and make it more useful, so we, as a people, can be able to use it in this day and time, and we can speak our language. So for example, if I was a Caucasian, and I see one of these brothers, and we're wearing black and gold, and I say, what are you? And you say, for example, you say, I'm black. You just put yourself in a box in which people already can prejudge you and know what you are. And then therefore now they can say, okay, you're black, so black comes with coming places late, eating fried chicken, and eating watermelon, for example. Now, if I'm to say, I'm Nuwaupian, now the first question that comes to them is, what is it? And now you become the God, because now I have to educate you without you being able to judge me. You follow what I'm saying? Now I have to teach you what Nuwaupian is, I have to teach you about my language, and now you have to hear it from me, instead of the white man's archaeologist and all his physicists can categorize you in whatever box or whatever it may be to put you in. You follow what I'm saying? Because they love to keep us in boxes. Thus, books are shaped like boxes. But my father took us through 1,257 boxes, 1,257 books that he's authored, and more still coming out. There's a lot in the bookstore, so everybody needs to buy a book so you can be able to understand, so you can get to the level of overstanding and taking it aside and making an understanding of what we teach. And then our teachings mainly based off of, well, let's do it like this. What is Wu-Nuwaup? Wu-Nuwaup is a sacred spiritual science where you have science meets spirituality at a center point called natural nature. So Nuwaupians deal with the natural nature of how things work in this universe. You follow what I'm saying? So for example, let's say something that's natural nature. Naturally, okay, I'll use the example I used before. Naturally, humans drink human milk. Naturally. As a baby, and then as you grow, you get past that stage. Somebody has convinced us to be drinking cow milk. Now, this is what I always say. Whoever discovered that you could drink cow milk is somebody you should be afraid of. Seriously, think about it. Think where cow milk comes from. So the first person to go up under a cow and start fondling with the cows, that's a problem. How did that even come to be? You know what I'm saying? And most likely it's most definitely Caucasian. So Nuwaupians, we deal with the natural nature, and we put everything in its natural state of how we are supposed to be as people. Both positive aspects of ourselves and negative aspects of ourselves. And a common question I'm always asked is, they say, every time I'm around Nuwaupians, I see Dr. York on shirts, I see him on the wall, I see him in books. And the common question is, do Nuwaupians worship Dr. York? I'm going to explain that question right now. Nuwaupians don't worship anything. Nuwaupians pay homage and respect to our ancestors, in which we call Panatharu.
That's right.
The word Panatharu means the overseers, or Pasalafu, which means the ancestors. Our ancestors, that which connects us to our genealogy. You know what I'm saying? That's why the first book of the Bible is called Genesis. Genealogy of Isis. The entire genealogy from a woman, the mother, who all her DNA and her seeds spread out, which we plant mother of the earth. You know what I'm saying? So, no. What we do is, Dr. York, we look at him as all of us in the Nuwaupian nation are gods. That's how we look at ourselves, as gods. And the reason why, if you're coming from a religious point of view, you have to acknowledge the fact that whether it be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it be El Elo, or just be God, Jesus, all these different gods, by whatever name you call them, all stated that they place themselves inside of you. You know what I'm saying? So that's for that build. So you can be able to understand that you are sitting in the place of a God. And then therefore, when you find yourself in a bad situation, you can say, is this what a God would be doing? Now we look at Dr. York, it's the Most High. Religious people, be patient with that word. Most High. When you say there's a most, that means you just admitted that there is a many. It means a lot of highs, and then there is a most. And if you're dealing with the person who has the most information, then it's the bearer of truth would be on you to ask yourself, who do I know built the first black nation? Who do I know wrote 1,257 books? Who do I know speaks 52 languages? Who do I know gave black people back their original culture? And then you can say, he's the most amongst us many. And we're all gods, and then he will be the most. Not in the aspect of worship. In the aspect of homage and respect. I pay homage and respect to my father because of all the works that he has done, that he has provided me. And what my father always called himself, he said, I am the reformer. What does reformer mean? Reformer means to do over, form, to create. So he reformed or recreated you into the God that you already was. So this doctrine isn't new. It's in your genetics. Thus, intelligence, intelligenes. The intel is inside your genes. You see what I'm saying? So it's in your genetics. That's why it clicks. That's why, and then the reason why, and now, if anybody has any questions dealing with consciousness, because I see the conscious community is growing like at a lot. I mean, it's growing fast. A lot of people are like catching on to stuff that seemed like it took years for people to get. You follow what I'm saying? The reason why you may see so many people walking up Ams and Nation Islam or waking up to any forms of these black doctrines is because we are in a sun cycle. We have a 24,000 year equinox, which breaks up into 4 quadrants of 6,000 years. Sun cycle, moon cycle, sun cycle, moon cycle. It's an actual fact that all African Americans are more empowered under that sun, under Ra, or as the Hebrews say, Ro. You follow what I'm saying? Even in the, and if you want to go, we can quote biblical scriptures. Anytime you see a picture of Jesus, you see a sun behind his head. So that means they were expressing something there. There's some form of truth there, but they're not giving you all of it. They're giving you bits and pieces. So to sum it up, of what my father's purpose was is, let's say we have a cookie, right? Break the cookie. What do you have? Crumbs. Now everybody grabbed the crumb and went in different directions. The master teacher took all those crumbs and brought them back together and said, "This is what you are, based on these crumbs." Not saying I'm taking you back to Faraka, which is Africa in Arabic, which means to divide. Not taking you back to the division, the original division. Taking you back to prior to that, pre-dynastic periods, dealing with Pangea, etc. These are terms that the Caucasian race calls it, but I'm saying it for you so you can be able to understand. Taking you back to Pangea. So Nuwaupians, our culture is the ancient culture of the pygmies of Atalhite. If you study the word pygmy, you find pygmy also uses science as pigmentation, which deals with the melanin. So that makes sure that you know exactly, when you're talking about pygmies, you're talking about melanated people. People with the pigment of melanin. Now I'm going to get into melanin. Melanin is originally expressed as green. A lot of people think melanin, black power, black power, black power. Melanin is originally green. It's an actual fact that 84% of African American children, you just go down and look it up. African American children are born with big green spots all over their body. That's an actual fact. It's an actual fact that when you wear alloys such as copper, iron, on your skin for long periods of time, your skin starts to turn green. And nobody seems to ask the question why. Even if we go to the oldest Egyptian deities, Sumerian deities, Aztecs, Mayans, whomever, they all are depicted green. And no one seems to ask that question. How do we go from green to brown? How do we start off at green? Or what is the origin of people in its entirety? So what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a race of people that came out of water, called the Ogdoads. And the Ogdoads came out of water, and they ended up on land during the 3rd ice age, which they called the snowball earth, because the entire earth was covered in ice. Now, that was a sun cycle which heated the earth up, taking it out of the cold and bringing it back into the heat. This ice age caused the ice caps, icebergs, glaciers, etc. to melt, which caused sea levels to rise. Thus, you have storms like Hurricane Katrina, etc., flood all the areas of what they call below sea level areas. And then you have, and that's why African Americans are found mostly in tropical regions, because we were coming, most tropical regions are below sea level, that's why the soil is so fertile. So, now you have Ogdoads on land, water breathers on land. You want an actual fact on that? Killer whales, any type of whale, they always found on the beach and they can still breathe. So you know you can still breathe. Anybody who wants to combat that, know that you spent 9 months breathing only water inside a womb. There's no air in you. So that means you would breathe in water. And if you break down water, what is water? Water is H2O, right? What is the O? And what does the O in water stand for? Oxygen. So that means water, the actual equivalent of water, is a thicker grade of oxygen in itself. So right now you're breathing what? What are we breathing right now? We're breathing oxygen, not carbon. We're breathing oxygen But in this oxygen, they say you have evaporation, condensation, precipitation, runoff. This is the process of rain. So that means there's water particles moving through the air at all times. Thus, your body stays at 80% of water at all given times. You follow what I'm saying? So it's an actual fact that we come from water, naturally. We suffer, most African American children, actually a good percentage, I believe it's in the 70s, but I'm not exact on the exact number, whether it's 74 or 76. But the 70s of African Americans suffer from a condition called eczema. What is eczema? Eczema is when your body's reacting in this atmosphere because it's a form of scales. If you look at it, if you study it, look up pictures on it, you'll see it's a form of scales. And what's happening is, and also asthma, which is a breathing disorder. All of these is because you came out, children, you don't have a child that has asthma body in the womb while they're underwater. You have a child that has asthma once they come out. See what I'm saying? So when the Nuwaups came on land and they surfaced themselves here, they began to adapt to the area. You feel what I'm saying? And during this adaptation, they were able to breathe, walk around, etc. This is the era of green people. Now we have to get into how did you go from green to brown. Well, what you have is you had magnesium, a high level of magnesium. Magnesium was the most dominant in your body. That flash just confused me all the way. I thought it was like Men in Black just now. I was like, what? Where'd that come from? Yeah, but the magnesium was the most dominant alloy in your body, right? And then what happened was that somehow, some way, magnesium seemed to begin to decimate from the body, and the most dominant became iron. It's an actual fact that iron, one, already is a metal that has a greenish hue already. But on top of that, when iron gets wet, what happens to it? It rusts. So when the iron begins to rust in the wet atmosphere, see what I'm saying? The oxidation, then the iron becomes what color? Brown, or reddish to tint. Thus, in the Bible it states that the first man's name was Adam, which comes from the Hebrew word Adama, which means red or ruddy brown. That's what Adama means. That's where his name comes from, Adam. So, this is the process that happens. Don't believe me? Check it out. Next time you get a cut, or you go get your blood pulled at a doctor, notice that the first drops of blood, the moment it goes inside the tube that he's pulling out of, it's a dark, 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 purplish, bluish color. The more comes out, it's replacing the oxygen that's already in the thing. So when the oxygen touches it, then you'll start to see it starts getting brighter and brighter and brighter red. This process is what happened to your skin, which caused you to go from green beans to brown beans. And the reason why when you wear elements such as copper, copper does what? Copper is reapplying, what's in copper? Magnesium is contained in copper as well. And it's reapplying that to your skin with the moisture, because remember you're wearing a ring, a necklace, now you're sweating, with that moisture, and then you take it off and now that area is green. You follow what I'm saying? So that's the origin of the green people and the green beings. But now we're in a state of brown. So now we got to focus on today and tomorrow, not yesterday. And the era that we are in today is known as the sun cycle. The last sun cycle of 24,000 years. It's recorded in Hopi history. Hopi history have something they call I got monk. Let's go. It's how the Hopi Indians spell it. Hopi Native Americans is in the Arizona area. They spell it, and please excuse my handwriting. It is awful. Not bad, awful. They describe it as a mun sap. It's an A. Awful. Munsal. And a munsal is a being that reincarnates itself on the planet. It's the Hopi Indians now. This is dealing with 3000 BC plus. That's in Arizona. And they have a munsal which reincarnates itself and brings them ancient wisdom. That's what they believe. That's in their belief system. They worship their ancestors. They believe on stomping on the ground and they want it to rain. They have different smoke rituals that they do. But one of the main beliefs in their entire system is on this one sap, which many people misinterpret as a what? Messiah. Messiah means messenger, or one who brings forth a message. My question is, what was Jesus' message? If he came, he took away your sin, and you can still sin today, then his message didn't get across. So, a Munsal is misinterpreted as a Messiah. We don't wait on Messiahs. Now, a Munsal has been also used in ancient Egypt, Kemet or Kamali, right? And what we know them as is, we know them as this. Well, actually, no, Egyptians expressed it in the melanin. W. What? Wu-Nuwaupu. Right? Wazal. Now, Wazal, the only Wazal that was recorded in Kemetic history was who? Who's the master scribe of ancient Egypt? Anybody know? The master scribe of ancient Egypt. Come on. Tahuti. Okay, good. So Tahuti is the master scribe of ancient Egypt. Also recorded as who? Melchizedek to the Hebrews. Right? Also recorded to the Sumerians as Marduk. To the Sumerians as Marduk. Constantly reincarnated himself, preparing for what? What was he preparing for? The sun cycle, the last sun cycle. Remember, black people have not been oppressed for 400 years or 1,000 years. We've been oppressed for what? 6,000 years. That's since 404 BC. Anybody wants to argue that, and they say, well, ancient Egypt had kingdoms. Ancient Egypt was pillaged. Ancient Egypt was robbed. Ancient Egypt was raped of their culture through this entire period since 4004 BC. Prior to 4004 BC, no Greeks had even knew about Egypt. And if the Greeks didn't know about it, you didn't know about it, because the Greeks is teaching us everything now today. Not us as Nuwaupians, us as black people in America. They're educating us. So that's why you'll notice most Egyptologists and scholars are not going to go past that 4004 BC. The only time they do is when they're talking about the construction of the pyramid or the construction of the language Melanin, which I wouldn't even say language, because Melanin is only written script. It's not able to be, there's no way that you will be able to read Melanin. For example, the word, and this is why I always say ancient Egypt wasn't called Kemet. Well, at least that's not one of our words. Because this hieroglyph that says KM.T, look it up. Anybody, y'all got your phones? KM.T wasn't written until when? 198 BC, which is about roughly 200 years before modern era. You see what I'm saying? So how is that ancient? That's not ancient. Ancient is when you're looking at numbers like 450,000 years. This is the type of numbers that we're talking about in the Nuwaupian nation. With actual facts and proof. Thus the books are called actual facts. You know what I'm saying? So what's the root word in Kemet? Let's spell it out. Kemet, actually I need more space. So, I'm gonna leave it up there. People can see the oldest language and they can see Kemet. So then in Kemet, or also spelled Khemet, this is a Hebrew word, Ham, or Ham, which comes from Ham, the K, and the K silent, Ham, or the Hamites. Follow me? Hamites. Now, if Ham or Ham, which means black in Hebrew, is coming from a Hebrew language, then now you have to track and do the studies and say, okay, so when did the Hebrews come in ancient Egypt? And they came in the late 600 BC, and the first people to speak Hebrew was known as the what? The Assyrians. And they fought with Egypt and they conquered Egypt in 570, I think it's 79 BC. So they conquered Egypt less than 30 years later. But they were at war through this entire period. When you conquer someone, like African Americans in America, we are a conquered people. We don't wear anything that belongs to us. We don't do anything that belongs to us. We don't speak anything that belongs to us. Everything is changed over. Your leaders become Caucasian. Well, the Assyrians are Hebrew, Arab type people in their appearance. So then that's when you start getting more light-skinned Arabs, etc., etc., etc. And now you have light-skinned pharaohs, and everything is changing. Everything is developing. So now our skin tone of ancient Egyptians starts to change. And then you want to get mad when you watch movies like Gods of Egypt with Caucasian Egyptians. We're dealing with Kemet, you're dealing with the Caucasian era. Because the Kemet, we're dealing with 700 plus BC. Look it up. Don't believe me. Check it out. 700 plus BC is what you're looking at when you're dealing with the Kemetic era. So you call yourself a Kemetite, which is really a Hamite, you're claiming an era, the latest era of Egypt, which can include the Ramesses dynasty, etc., but the genetics was already mixed. So meaning you already lost most of that essence of your original God himself. This is why Nuwaupians, we don't deal with the Kemetic era of Egypt. There's no reason to. This is an era of what you have called Ascetianism. Ascetianism. ism, right? Look this word up, where it's worship. Worship of Aset, which is Isis. Worship of Aset, which is Isis. Also, it's infused with ancient stories from such witches and dealing with vampirism that came in when the Greeks came in. So you're dealing with a worship of the Egyptian deities. And we as black people, I don't know why we are on our knees when we are the gods. You don't spend time on your knees when you're a god. You spend your time standing up. You don't look up, you don't look down, you look right in front of you. Everything is about the middle point. The middle point, that's why people say, never have two extremes. Don't be too forward and don't be too passive. Stay in the middle. That's my father always said to me too. He said, I want you to be humble, but don't be a pushover. Stay in the middle. Stay neutral. Somebody attack you, you go 0 to 100. No, you're supposed to go 50 to 100 or 50 to 0. Stay at that middle. You follow what I'm saying? Are y'all with me?
Tour.
I teach a lot, but y'all. So,